Dean on the Street, back with retired rock star John Blanco. John and I had the opportunity to meet on the street in Port Jefferson in Starbucks. I was doing some shows with makeup artist and musician and singer Paige Patterson. We had an opportunity to meet.
Right.
Hey, listen, thanks for coming to my home. Not a bad studio out here.
Beautiful, huh? Beautiful studio. Beautiful
It's
home.
Really nice. Thank you. Next time we'll go swimming.
We can do that.
The wife said it needs a little bit, another week,
Okay.
a little bit more week of cleaning. She'll put the...
Might burn our flesh off when we go in the first time, but we'll survive.
Hey, listen, rock star. Tell my audience who you are.
Well, first of all, I react, not in a good way when I hear retired. I'm not sure if I'm a retired rock star or just a tired rock star. If you're a rock star, you're always a rock star. Did it all my life. I was, for people who don't know me, this might be fascinating. For those who do know me, it's going to be the most boring garbage you're going to hear.
That's not true.
Okay.
That's not true.
But yeah, I come from a musical family. My dad was a singer as well. And as a child, I sang with some very prestigious boy choirs. I sang with St. Killian Boys Choir, and then only to say that sang under the baton of Leonard Bernstein at Lincoln Center a few times, Seiji Ozawa, recorded an album with Andre Castellanets when I was 13 years old. Actually, it's a Christmas album that still you hear in stores. It's like part of the music when you go into a Macy's. They still play some of the carols we did as when I was younger. And when I got older, you know, my dream was always to become a rock star. I went to college and I studied classical singing, opera. So I fool around with that every once in a while. It's part of my roots. Actually, my first love in music is actually choral music.
Choral music.
I love choral music. Bruckner, Bach, Pergolesi, people like that. And I had the opportunity in college, getting out of school. I didn't want to be a teacher. A lot of my contemporaries were going to settle for becoming a music teacher, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be a performer. I had always been a songwriter. So I ended up, I played in a band in the New York area for many years called Harpy. Very popular band. But one of the musicians, or one of the artists from the band Foreigner, used to come down and watch us all the time. He became a fan. And when he left Foreigner, that was Ed Gagliardi, when he left Foreigner, he approached John, my guitarist, and myself and said, listen, I'd like to start another band. Would you guys join? And that's when we joined up with Ed. And then about a year later, after putting the band together, the keyboard player from Foreigner left as well. So then Al Green would join the band.
Wow.
So we had these two, I always looked at as celebrities who were in the band, just normal human beings though. They were great people, very talented musicians. The whole band was very talented. And we recorded we did a few albums with EMI, which at the time EMI was a major label. They owned Capitol Records. They had a lot of other artists that were just like us, like Queen and David Bowie, the people you might have heard of. But the label was a good label. And we actually, you're talking about in the early 80s, mid 80s, when MTV was just getting its feet wet, and we were MTV darling. We got a lot of airplay on MTV on the first two records that we did, and you can still go and look for Spies, SPYS. Midnight Fantasy is one song that has a good video too. There's also She Can't Wait. Both those came from two separate albums. And what was really nice was, even though we were almost a one-hit wonder, years later we seemed to be a critic's darling. And I think in 2000, it was either Kerrang or Classic Rock Magazine did the top 10 most classic rock melodic albums of all time.
Wow.
And we were in the top 10.
Top 10.
With bands like Foreigner, Boston, Asia, Fleetwood Mac, people you recognize. But we were almost an unknown, so that almost created almost a new curiosity at the public. Like, who the heck are these guys who are rating so high, most melodic? So done a lot of things. I played with a lot of bands, met with members of Pat Benatar, REO Speedwagon, 38 Special. We did a major tour with 38 Special. And when the things started to go twilight for me, I actually moved from being a full-time musician into a computer scientist.
Well, we're going to save that. We're going to talk about that. But real quickly,
Yes.
influences in life, artists, artists and albums that influenced you in life the most.
I think the seminal album that's influenced me in my life was Sgt. Pepper's. I was a very big Beatle fan.
Wow.
I think Paul McCartney has one of the greatest voices of our time. What he can do with his voice. I was also a big Queen. I think Freddie Mercury was wonderful.
Awesome, great.
John Anderson of Yes. Actually, my oldest son Ian, is named after Ian Gillan. Everyone thought I named him after Ian Fleming or someone like that.
Wow.
But it's Ian Gillan, who was the voice of Jesus on Jesus Christ Superstar on the first album, and who was the singer from Deep Purple, and I was a big Deep Purple fan. I consider myself spiritual, so Pope John Paul was an inspiration to me. And I like musically, art, things like that. I'm always going to be a musician. I had the opportunity of doing some operatic singing over the last 3 or 4 years with a choir, and that was getting back to my roots, and I still love doing it. So,
Hey, listen, thanks for being on the street. Thanks for visiting with me.
great meeting you too.
You bet.
hang on.
Hey, listen, John Blanco, local boy.
Port Jeff.
We're going to be doing a lot together in the future. But until next time, catch you on the street.